In a universe governed by strict regulations, humanity entered not merely to comply but to disrupt the status quo. Prepare yourself, for this narrative challenges all preconceived notions. A universally acknowledged truth among alien cultures is their botanists' fondness for paperwork, not for its thrill but for its predictability and safety. After all, paperwork never attempts to devour its handler. This is exactly why Frankel Gribnitz, a botanist from Kwusen resembling a squid, had chosen his career path. He might have pursued a path as a warrior or a politician, but he preferred plants, which, unlike other entities, neither exploded nor initiated legal actions. His colleague, the constantly nervous Blazer Friot, shared the belief that plants surpass chaos, a mantra that made their current situation particularly alarming. Hovering invisibly in their observation sphere above a quaint human residence on Earth, they encountered a sight so terrifying that it sent Blazer's multiple stomachs into synchronous dismay. Could that possibly be what I suspect? Blazer exclaimed, his body shaking like gelatin during a tremor. Peering through the orb, Frankel focused on the lush greenery in a backyard. If you're thinking of the Jarlon spore fern, then indeed that is precisely what it is. Blazer gestured wildly at the vegetation. But it's supposed to be extinct. What's it doing on this perplexing, carnivorous, utterly mystifying planet? Frankel made a motion akin to shaking his head. More critically, are you aware of the consequences if a creature even brushes against one of those leaves? Instant internal disintegration. Just then, a human, a lanky, middle-aged figure in casual footwear, strolled into the garden, humming a melody reminiscent of Bohemian Rhapsody in a slightly discordant tone, carrying a basket. What is he planning to do? He's venturing dangerously close. Blazer panicked. Do we engage the disintegration beam? With a swift motion, Frankel dismissed the idea. Remember, we are botanists. Disintegration beams are not in our arsenal. Unaware of the lurking danger overhead, the human plucked several leaves from the Jarlon spore fern and, with alarming nonchalance, tasted one. He's consuming it, Blazer cried out in a pitch typically used for communication on his planet. The human considered the flavor. It lacks salt, he noted, then walked back towards his dwelling, a spring in his step, oblivious to the impending doom he carried. Blazer collapsed, despairing. He's a goner. He's deceased but just hasn't realized it yet. However, Frankel's instruments painted a different picture. He's not deceased. His vital signs are stable. In fact, he adjusted his readings. He's contentedly humming. This is utterly baffling. Blazer convulsed with anxiety. Humans must have developed a resistance by consuming substances lethal to others for generations. I warned you of the perils of this planet. Frankel diverted his attention back to the human, who had now returned with what appeared to be a hot beverage. He's transformed it into a drink, he said in hushed awe. A beverage? Blazer groaned weakly. We must contact the Galactic Council. This situation is beyond our control, far beyond our capacity to manage alone. We may just have to face the fact that this situation defies our current understanding of biology. Frankel murmured as he peered closely at his instruments, recording every detail of the human's interaction with the plant. Our entire mission might be redefined by what happens here. Blazer, still trembling slightly, couldn't hide his dismay. This could redefine not just our mission but our entire understanding of dangerous flora. Humans are interacting with it as if it's just another crop. Frankel nodded thoughtfully. Exactly. If humans have indeed developed an immunity or even a beneficial relationship with this plant, it could revolutionize the way we classify flora and fauna across galaxies. This isn't just about survival. It's about evolutionary adaptation. The human, oblivious to the cosmic conundrum he was causing, continued to sip his tea, a picture of serenity amidst the potential turmoil. His calm demeanor and the routine manner in which he engaged with the deadly plant left the botanists baffled. Blazer, his voice a mix of awe and exasperation, watched the human move about his kitchen. He's not just surviving, he's thriving. This individual's daily routine includes what should be a deadly poison. And look at him, absolutely unfazed. Frankel, always the scientist, tried to remain focused on their objective. We must collect as much data as possible. Our report to the Galactic Council will need to be thorough to adequately convey the anomalies we're observing. The two continued to monitor the human, noting every detail of how he handled the Jarlon spore fern. As the human prepared another batch of what he appeared to consider a delightful tea, Frankel and Blazer exchanged a look of resignation mixed with scientific curiosity. I propose we initiate a controlled communication attempt, Frankel suggested, adjusting the settings on on their orb's communication device. We need to understand if he is aware of the plant's properties, and if other humans are as resistant as he is. Blazer nodded, his earlier panic subsiding into a cautious intrigue. Agreed, but we proceed with caution. Our presence must not disrupt his natural behavior. We observe, we document, and yes, only if absolutely necessary, we intervene. As they prepared to initiate contact, the human set his tea down, glanced around his kitchen as if feeling a presence, and shrugged nonchalantly before returning to his culinary experimentations. Frankel took a deep breath, or the equivalent in his squid-like form, and activated the translator. It's time to learn more about this remarkable species, he declared, ready to bridge the gap between interstellar botanical science and one remarkably unorthodox human's kitchen antics. With a flicker of their orb's technology, they began the delicate process of introducing themselves to the human, ready to expand their understanding of the universe's biological mysteries. What in the cosmos? The human exclaimed, dropping his spoon in surprise. Frankel tried to initiate a calm and clear conversation, his voice modulated to a soothing tone through the flickering translator. Greetings, Earth inhabitant. We come in peace and with significant concern regarding your recent dietary choices. Blazer, unable to contain his nervous energy, blurted out, "You're eating death. That plant is lethal across multiple systems." The translator crackled and spat out a less alarming version. "Your current consumption involves a plant known for its dangerous properties." The human, still processing the sudden appearance of two talking extraterrestrial blobs in his kitchen, squinted at them. "Are you, what, aliens? Is this some kind of prank? We assure you, this is no jest," Frankel continued, struggling to keep the translator on topic. "The Jarlon spore fern you are so casually using is known to cause severe biological reactions. How are you not affected?" The human chuckled, a response that seemed to mix incredulity with a dash of pride. "Oh, that? Yeah, I read about its dangers online, but nothing happened after I tried it the first time. Figured it might be one of those internet myths." Blazer's appendages twitched with anxiety. "But it's not a myth. It's a well-documented, scientifically proven fact." Other beings, Frankel cut him off, fearing Blazer's panic might escalate the situation. "What my colleague means to say is, your resilience to the plant is extraordinary. May we study this further? It could be crucial for intergalactic botanical science." The human, now somewhat intrigued by his own unexpected role in alien research, nodded slowly. "Sure, I guess, but only if you're not planning to abduct me or anything. I have a barbecue this weekend, and I promised everyone more of this pesto." Frankel quickly reassured him. "No abductions. We merely wish to understand how you and possibly other humans can ingest this plant without adverse effects." Blazer, still visibly shaken but trying to regain composure, added, "Could we perhaps take some samples? Both of the plant and, if you're willing, a blood sample from you." The human shrugged, his curiosity now piqued by his own biological anomaly. "Sure, why not? If it helps you figure out why I'm not dead, I'm all for it. But hey, if you discover something cool, I want in on it." "Agreed," Frankel said, relieved. "We're particularly interested in whether this immunity is something unique to you or shared among humans." As Frankel and Blazer collected samples, the human watched with a mix of amusement and interest. "You know, my mom always said I was special, but I never thought it'd be because I could eat deadly alien plants." Blazer, finally seeing a humorous side to the ordeal, managed a small chuckle. "Well, Earth might just be full of surprises for us all." With samples secured, Frankel and Blazer prepared to leave, their mission unexpectedly turning from a simple observation to potentially groundbreaking research. "We will contact you with our findings," Frankel promised. "Thank you for your cooperation." The human nodded, turning back to his pesto with a newfound appreciation for his place in the universe. "No problem, little space dudes. Let me know if it turns out I can help save the galaxy with my weird stomach." As the projection faded and they returned to their orb, Frankel and Blazer looked at each other, the weight of their discovery settling in. This could change everything, Frankel mused, staring back at the small Earth house that housed a man who ate poisonous plants for breakfast. Blazer, feeling slightly less terrified now, agreed. "Yes, and let's hope it's for the better." With that, they set a course back to their research station, their minds buzzing with possibilities. At that exact moment, a human, gangly, middle-aged, clad in what appeared to be casual beachwear, meandered into the garden, basket in hand, whistling a tune. The melody bore a slight resemblance to a popular Earth song, though significantly off-key. "What on earth is he planning to do?" Blazer gasped, anxiety heightening as the man approached the dreaded Jarlon spore fern. "Do we engage protective measures?" he whispered frantically to Frankel, who merely flicked an appendage dismissively. "Remember, we are observers," Frankel replied sternly. "Our mission does not include intervention moderation, only in absolute necessity. Unaware of the cosmic debate hovering just above him, the human plucked several leaves from the Jarlon spore fern, inspecting them with curiosity before doing the unthinkable. He casually popped a leaf into his mouth. He's actually eating it. Blazer's voice reached a pitch that would be alarming on any planet. The human seemed to savor the leaf, a thoughtful expression crossing his face before he commented to himself, needs salt, and strolled back towards his house, evidently pleased. Blazer collapsed, his form quivering. He's a goner. He must be. How is he still walking? But Frankel, ever the scientist, checked the readings again. Remarkably, his vital signs are stable. No immediate liquefaction, no signs of distress. He's humming. This is preposterous, Blazer exclaimed. Humans must possess some bizarre resilience. Remember the dossier. They consume all manner of lethal substances for pleasure. Frankel, his interest piqued by this anomaly, nodded. Indeed, they fry their foods in vats of oil, imbibe liquids that could fuel small crafts, and seem to thrive on environmental toxins. Fascinating. As they continued to watch, the human returned outdoors, this time with a steaming cup, likely containing the same lethal plant. He sipped it leisurely, then proceeded to water the fern with an old jug labeled inexplicably with barbecue sauce. Blazer, unable to contain his horror, broke the silence. I don't believe he's going to succumb to the effects. Not immediately, anyway. Frankel's eye stalks drooped slightly. Agreed. Yet, how do we explain this to the High Council? This plant could decimate populations galaxy-wide, yet here it serves as a garden variety herb. We should have been cataloging benign flora on Quasladen, Blazer lamented, watching the human now spread what appeared to be a pesto made from the deadly plant onto toast. Instead, we're witnessing a human treat one of the galaxy's most lethal plants as a culinary experiment. And now, Frankel added with a grim tone, we must document how humanity might not just withstand but culinary exploit the deadliest of plants. The two floated in their observation orb, their mission parameters expanding with each passing Earth minute. Inside the house, the human hummed contentedly, spreading the green paste onto another slice of bread, utterly unaware of the interstellar implications of his dietary choices. Look at that, Blazer pointed out, his voice a mix of admiration and dismay. He treats it with no more caution than one would season a meal. Frankel continued to take meticulous notes. This human's behavior is either a display of incredible ignorance or extraordinary biological defiance, or perhaps both, Blazer sighed, watching the man now happily munching on his potentially deadly snack. But how do we even begin to intervene without creating an intergalactic incident? Frankel pondered for a moment before responding. We monitor, we learn, and only then do we decide our next move. For now, the mystery of human resilience adds a new chapter to our studies, a chapter filled with peril and intrigue. As they set their instruments to continue recording, both knew that their report would challenge everything the Galactic Council thought they understood about biological safety and the quirky, perilous nature of earthly inhabitants. Inside the dwelling, the human, entirely unaware of the cosmic consternation he had caused, continued with his daily routines, which now included culinary experiments with what should have been a lethal plant. Blazer and Frankel hovered, their mission taking on an urgency they hadn't anticipated. Look at him, Frankel muttered as they observed the human casually spreading the fern paste onto a slice of bread. He treats it as if it's just another herb from his garden. Blazer was almost frantic. This isn't just reckless, it's unprecedented. Do you realize the implications if other species try to replicate this? We could be responsible for a galactic health crisis. Frankel adjusted his sensors, focusing more intently on the human. Our primary goal remains observation and data collection. We must gather evidence on how he interacts with the fern, any physiological changes, and whether this immunity is an anomaly or a common trait among humans. As they collected data, the human proceeded to mix the fern paste into other foods, seemingly experimenting with different flavors and combinations. He appeared delighted with the results, oblivious to the potential danger. This casual bravery or foolhardiness was noted by Frankel with a mix of admiration and horror. Perhaps, Frankel proposed, we should consider direct communication. We need to understand his perspective. How did he discover the plant was edible? Has he shared this with others? Blazer, though nervous, agreed. A direct approach is risky, but the potential scientific benefit is substantial. If we can understand his methods, perhaps we can mitigate the risks associated with this plant. Preparing for interaction, they recalibrated their translator to ensure clarity and diplomacy. Frankel rehearsed their introduction, aiming to strike a balance between expressing their scientific interest and their concerns for safety. Finally, they initiated contact. The human was startled but intrigued as the two aliens appeared before him, their forms shimmering slightly due to the translucency of the projection. interjection. "Hello," Frankel began, his voice steady despite the flickering of the translator. "We mean no harm. We are researchers interested in the plant you've been using. Can you share how you determined it was safe to consume?" The human, recovering from his initial shock, responded with a mix of curiosity and pride. "Oh, the Jarlon spore fern? Yeah, I read some old gardening forums online. Someone mentioned it was toxic, but there was also a post about its medicinal properties. I figured I'd try a little. When I didn't get sick, I just went with it." Frankel and Blazer exchanged glances. This casual trial-and-error approach was almost unthinkable from a scientific standpoint. "We are concerned because this plant is known to be highly toxic," Blazer interjected, his tone earnest. "You seem to have a unique tolerance. Would you be open to some tests to help us understand why?" The human nodded, intrigued by the notion of being part of intergalactic research. "Sure, why not? Could be interesting. Plus, if there's something special about me, I'd like to know what it is." With the human's agreement, Frankel and Blazer set up a small, portable lab near the dwelling, preparing to conduct careful, non-invasive tests. The research they gathered here could potentially reshape intergalactic dietary guidelines and safety protocols. As they worked, Blazer couldn't help but marvel at the human's nonchalant bravery. "He's eating it again," he whispered to Frankel, who was busy taking samples. Frankel nodded, his focus intense. "Yes, and each time he does, he's helping us learn more about human resilience. This could be a significant scientific discovery, thanks to his audacity." The mission, initially just a routine survey, had morphed into a pivotal exploration of human anomalous physiology. As they continued their work, both knew that their findings would echo throughout scientific communities across the galaxy, challenging old assumptions and perhaps introducing a new era of bioresearch. Frankel, though equally alarmed, maintained a semblance of calm. He's not just surviving with it, he's actually cultivating it as if it were basil. He scribbled more notes, his appendages a blur of motion. Blazer's voice rose in panic. "This is madness. Does he intend to spread this to others? Imagine the chaos if this becomes a trend." Frankel peered through their observation device, his focus intensifying as he watched the human carefully select and cut the fern's leaves. "We must understand his intention. Is this mere curiosity or something more?" As the human collected the freshly cut leaves and began to pile them into a basket, Frankel and Blazer prepared to take action. "We need to communicate directly," Frankel decided. "It's too risky to let this continue without intervention." With a reluctant nod, Blazer activated their ship's communication system, tuning it to a frequency that wouldn't startle the human too severely. "Let's keep it concise and clear," he advised. Materializing in a non-threatening form in the corner of the yard, they caught the human's attention as he turned, shears still in hand. His reaction was one of startled curiosity rather than fear. "Hello, human," Frankel began, his voice modulated to be soothing yet firm. "We observe you have an unusual interaction with a plant that is known to be extremely hazardous." The human, blinking in astonishment at the sight of two alien forms in his backyard, slowly lowered the shears. "You're telling me these leaves are dangerous?" he asked, a hint of skepticism in his voice. "I've been using them in my cooking for weeks now and feel fine," Blazer interjected. "That is precisely the issue. This plant, where we come from, it causes severe harm. We are puzzled and concerned about how you are unaffected." The human chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, I suppose I'm just lucky then. Or maybe your science has got it wrong." Frankel quickly responded, "Our aim is to understand, not accuse. Could we examine how you prepare these leaves? Perhaps there's something in your process that neutralizes the toxins." Intrigued and always happy to share his culinary experiments, the human agreed. "Sure, follow me to the kitchen. I'll show you how I make the pesto." Inside, as the human demonstrated his preparation method, washing the leaves, then blending them with olive oil, garlic, and nuts, Frankel and Blazer scanned and analyzed each step, their instruments buzzing softly. "What if it's something in the Earth's environment? The soil, the water?" Blazer pondered aloud. "Or perhaps something in his physiology," Frankel mused, watching the human taste his creation without a hint of harm. "We need samples of both the environment and his biology to test back at our lab." The human, now thoroughly enjoying the novelty of his afternoon, agreed to provide whatever samples the aliens needed. "If this helps you learn something new, I'm all for it," he said, scooping some pesto into a jar. As they collected samples, Frankel Frankel and Blazer were both puzzled and fascinated. Here was a clear example of human resilience or audacity that defied galactic understanding. This will require extensive study, Frankel noted as they prepared to leave, their samples secured. The implications could be profound. Blazer, though still apprehensive, had to agree. Let's just hope we discover something beneficial before he decides to throw a garden party with these leaves. With a final nod to the human, who waved them off cheerily, Frankel and Blazer returned to their orb, their minds racing with questions and theories. The universe, as always, remained full of surprises, especially on Earth. The human paused, his curiosity now piqued by the seriousness of Frankel's tone. Okay, you've got my attention. Tell me more. What's this about dropping dead? Frankel seized the opportunity, hoping the translator would hold up. The Jarlon spore fern is known across the galaxy for its lethal properties. In all documented cases, exposure, much less consumption, results in immediate and severe physiological reactions. Blazer, still tense, added, "We've never seen anyone consume it and survive. You are an anomaly." The human looked thoughtful, then glanced at the pesto he had just been preparing. An anomaly, huh? I guess that explains why my online gardening group had so many questions. Frankel continued, "We believe there may be something unique about your biology or perhaps something in the way you prepare the plant that neutralizes its toxins. We need to study this further to understand." The human nodded slowly. "Well, if it can help make sure no one else gets hurt, I'm all for helping out. What do you need from me?" Blazer interjected quickly before Frankel could respond. "First, please promise you'll stop consuming the plant until we understand more. If it's as dangerous as we know it to be, you might not be lucky forever." "Fair enough," the human agreed, pushing the pesto aside with a rueful smile. "No more pesto until we figure this out. So, what's the plan?" Frankel outlined their immediate steps. "We would like to take some samples of the plant from your garden, as well as some blood samples from you to test your biochemistry. We also want to observe your preparation process in detail." "Sure thing," the human said, leading them to his garden where the Jarlon spore fern thrived suspiciously well. As he provided samples, Frankel and Blazer conducted scans and collected data, their instruments buzzing and whirring in the quiet Earth afternoon. Meanwhile, Blazer, ever the cautious one, monitored their surroundings, ensuring that their interaction remained unnoticed by anyone else. "We should also keep this discreet," he murmured to Frankel. "If this knowledge becomes widespread before we understand it, there could be chaos." Back in the kitchen, as they wrapped up their collection, the human asked, "So, if you figure out why I can eat this stuff, what happens? Do I get some kind of intergalactic immunity certificate?" Frankel chuckled, a sound rare for him during missions. "Something like that. But more importantly, we might be able to use what we learn from you to help others, not just on Earth but perhaps elsewhere too." The human seemed pleased with that, his earlier amusement at the situation giving way to a sense of responsibility. "All right then, let's make sure no one else has to find out the hard way that they're not an anomaly like me." As they prepared to leave, Frankel turned to the human one last time. "Thank you for your cooperation. We will be in contact soon with our findings and next steps." The human waved them off, a smile on his face as he watched the odd pair disappear as suddenly as they had appeared. Inside, he pondered the day's surreal events, slightly bemused and surprisingly unafraid. Outside, Frankel and Blazer ascended back to their orb, their minds racing with the possibilities of what they had just discovered. This could change everything, Frankel mused, not just about the Jarlon spore fern, but about human resilience and adaptability. Blazer, for once, allowed himself a moment of optimism. "Let's just hope it's a change for the better."